You guys remember, I think I asked this question a few months earlier. Why did Jesus come? To save the world, yes. What else? What is it? To reconcile us to the Father, yes. Yeah, all of these answers are correct. But I wonder if we ask Jesus why he came, he would answer that to show us the Father. He came to show us what God is like. And in this passage, we see, he's giving this parable as a way of trying to tell us what God is like. It's a beautiful story, and this parable of a lost son has been told for centuries. But but the meaning is so profound of who the Father is. When this example is given again, why is the Father, is the why is the Father used as analogy for God? In this chapter, we see other examples of a loss, something that is lost, and the person that loses that, goes out to find at any cost that what is lost. And in this parable, we hear of God as a father. And so, to understand what it really meant, when the son said, I want my share of inheritance from the father who is leaving. When Jesus was giving this example, this story, had to really shock everybody. The story was being told to the Pharisees and the leaders, tax collectors at the time. When Jesus told about this young man who basically said, Father, I want you to divide all the property, your property, and give my share. So the word for property in Greek means bios. So bios is basically your living, your substance. And at that time in the Middle East, land pretty much determined your status. So what Son was saying, that the land that the father owned had to be sold. And when the land is sold, that really, the land was part of your living. That was part of your identity, right? Your status was determined by how much land you have. So what the father did was basically lower himself in the status by selling all of his possessions and dividing them. What father would do such a thing? He was, in the Middle East, when a son would make such a request, Middle Eastern father would be expected to basically chase off the son who makes such a request. In a verbal way, maybe even with a physical blow. Like, how dare you ask such a thing? And what's even more amazing, that the father agrees to that. So why did father agree to such a request? What does it tell us about that father who agrees to such a request? In the history of United Kingdom, there have been kings and queens, right, that did things by marrying women who were not approved by royalty, and in such a way brought on shame to the royal family. And these members of the royal family usually would be either on self-exile or they would be exiled, right? So the son takes his share of the property. The father allows him to do this, and he goes and squanders it in, in partying, and he's probably was taken advantage of by others, and comes to a point where he's got nothing left. His life is really tough now. He's suffering. He says, I have to eat something, and so he hires himself to somebody who is living in that foreign land he went to. And things got so bad, there was a famine in that country, that he was looking after pigs. Remember, in Jewish tradition, eating pigs, doing anything with pigs was very filthy. It was not really an honorable thing to do. So he was at the bottom of the society at that point, that son. And he longed to fill his stomach, even with food that the pigs were eating, but nobody would give it to him. And something happens, something clicks in him, and he says, you know what? My servants at my father's house eat much better than this. And he says, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to fall on my knees. I'm going to say, I am really sorry, Father, that I dishonored you in such a way, that I did what I did. Please forgive me. Let me be like your servants, basically. Is that what he intends now to do? And I think it's amazing that he came to that conclusion that there is a better life, and I could have a better life if I just humble myself and I go back. So that's what he does. And as a father, so the son is on his way. The father is probably sitting in the kitchen, And if you were one of, if your son did something like that, that dishonored your family, that it was basically a spit on in your face when your son did something like that, and you're sitting in the kitchen, and you see your son coming, and the father, I'm sure, started tapping his feet and saying to himself, "This is better be good." Whatever he has to say, this is better be good. Because he has to, right? In our minds, he would have to earn that trust again. But we see that the father doesn't do it. He just jumps out, he runs to his son, and in that culture, men running was really dishonorable, because for a man to run, it was not a dignified thing to do. Children could run, the youth could run, and sometimes the women could run, but for a head of the family, the patriarch, to run was really dishonorable. But this father does not care about that. What he sees is that his lost son is coming back. So he forgets about his honor, and runs to greet his son. And before his son even has a chance to say, the son just starts, going through his prepared speech of being sorry. The father does not even let him stop. Does not even let him finish, and just hugs him, gives him a kiss, and the son says, I wanna earn that acceptance. I wanna be like your hired servants. You see, there was a difference between a hired servant and a hired worker. I'm sorry, not hired servant, but a servant of the family. Servant of the family lived on the estate. He ate the food, that was prepared there by the owner of the house. But the hired servant did not live on the estate. They would probably live somewhere else, right? They had to provide their own house. They may have even to provide their own food, but they would be paid for the work. So the son was wanting, basically saying, hey, I'm not worthy even to be your servant. Just let me be one of your hired men, and I'm gonna earn my way into your acceptance. I'm gonna try to earn that dishonor that I did to you. And the father would not have it. He's like, you don't need to do any of that. What does the father do? He gives him the best robe, right? The best robe was the symbol, like you don't have that shame anymore. Before the society could judge him, before his neighbors could say, oh, look at that son, he's back. Before they could even pronounce that judgment, the son restores honor to his son by giving him the best robe. What else does the father give him? He gives him the signet ring. Remember, back in the days, the ring had a little stamp on it. And, instead of signing official papers, they would, press that ring as a seal, as their signature, basically. So in that way, he is restored. The father was restoring the son's authority as the son. and he was giving him the sandals, new sandals, that you got a chance at new life now. And what, the question is, what would cause the father to honor, to restore the son who dishonored him so much? What do you think? Why would the father do such a thing? In our times, I'm sure you all watching the news, right? And there is this, President Trump saying to Ukraine that you have to give us back some minerals, some of your minerals. And the world is, aghast, appalled, like why? Why is this thing happening? And what is the Trump is saying is basically we give you, over $500 billion in aid, and we want something in return. And and I was talking to one of my friends, and my friend is like, I thought U.S. was benevolent country that it would give and not expect anything in return. But reality is, like with the U.S., it's in trillions of dollars in debt. These trillions of dollars have to be paid somehow. Who's going to pay them? It's the future generations of Americans. Probably, their taxes would have to be increased for that debt to be paid. But the expectation is somebody's gonna, sometimes your relatives might ask you for money and you don't really have the money, but they expect you to go into debt so you can borrow that money to them or give them that money without asking anything in return. So there's, as humans, we have this tendency. If I give you something, I want something in return, right? So what did the father have to earn or to get back from lowering himself to such a low? What do you guys think? Why did he do that? What was in it for him? If for Trump, he's giving this aid, but wants the minerals back, right? Ukrainian minerals. What was in the father's mind? Why did he do such a thing? What do you all think?
He wants to restore his son.
Yes, he wanted his son back. He wanted a relationship with his son, right? He didn't want wealth. He don't want money. Although his son didn't care about his dad, right? When he did what he did, he said, "I don't care about you, dad. All I care is about your wealth. I want my freedom. I want my independence, and I want your money." That's what he said to his father. But his father didn't care about those things. He wanted his son restored to him. It was the love, right? That love that he had for his son. That love that he has for his creation as a God. So, in such a, and I think it's a beautiful example of, a lot of us are in that place. A lot of us are, we want something from God, but we don't want the relationship with him. We want the prosperity, we want the material things, but we really don't care about the relationship with the Father. And what is going to be our response? As the prodigal son, he came to his senses and he said, "I want to go back. I don't want to live this life. I'm going to humble myself." So what is going to be your response? Some of us, this story is really about two sons, about a son who is lost, who gives away, dishonors the family, and the other son who stays, who continues to honor the family. And that story is really the dynamic that happens between these two sons. And some of us probably could identify ourselves with the lost son, and some of us could identify ourselves with the son who stayed and was faithful to the father. But my challenge to you is, what is going to be your response to your situation, to your life? You have a choice to go back to the Father. And what's interesting about this story, the father, this image of God as a father is very unique. It's very unique to the Bible. In other religions, that relationship between God and humans is very different. Like in Islam, for example, it's a relationship of master to a slave. The Muslims will tell you that they are merely slaves, that are just only slaves to their master. But how does that change dynamic of how they relate to God? Can a slave dishonor their master like the son can dishonor the father? What will happen to a slave who dishonors the master? A very severe penalty, right? Does the slave have any ownership in the father's possessions? No. Does the does the slave inherit anything? Does the slave have any say? Can they say, I'm not going to believe in you, or I'm not going to do what you say? That doesn't, right? It's only the son, it's only the daughter that have that right, that have ability to do that. A lot of times, the Muslims will say, how could God lower himself and be a man? How could God be a man? And the answer to that is God is all powerful. He can be anything he wants to be. He could eat, he could sleep, he could even dwell among his people. Because God is all powerful. He can do anything he wills. And God is so loving that he is willing to lower himself. He is willing to take on that shame in order to gain that relationship back. And that's what Jesus does on the cross. He takes on our shame. He takes on all the penalty that we deserve in order so we could be restored to the Father. So we could have that relationship with the Father. And the Father wants nothing more than to have that relationship back with you as his son and his daughter. And and the son in this story, he accepts the robe, he accepts the steel, and he accepts the sandals. But some of us try to earn that, our way back to the Father. Some people keep working for it. And in the gospel, we see that, the Father does not expect you to be working to earn your status in the family. He's not expecting you to do all that hard work. He loves you so much that it's a free gift. That's what we call grace. Grace is when you receive something when you don't deserve any of it, right? And that is God's grace. And that is an example of God's grace, that we can have it all without having to work for it, because God did it all for us on the cross. So I pray that as you consider this story, you would just think, where do you think as a son, as a daughter, how is your relationship with the Father? Are you in exile in a different country? Or are you in his family? I pray that we would be running to him, just like he is, willing to run and ready to run to accept us. Lord, I pray that you would bless us, that you would continue to reveal your heart of a father, that we would see that beautiful heart of a father you have for us. Even sometimes when our human fathers failed us and they did not love us in a way that is sacrificial, in a way that is just, the way you love us. I pray that you would, just help us forgive our fathers. I pray that you would help us, lay aside our pride, lay aside these things that are holding us up from running to you. And I pray that you would be glorified for what you have done for us on the cross. In Jesus' name, God. Amen.